All right. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, and this is the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast number 34. And today this is the one about the Independent Interpretive Jeet Kune Instructors Association. All right. Okay, it's a joke. it's somebody called this my Gemini humor. There is no such organization. And no, I'm not going to be forming any such organization. At least not something with a name like that, right? But I have said before that one of my hopes is to one day host, probably during the winter or the spring here in Miami, some kind of an instructors conference where the emphasis will be on the display of and the examination of and then collaboration on the different training methods or the different approaches that different Jeet Kune instructors use, right? The reason why this came up is because a lot of times the topics that I choose for discussion on the broadcast, as I've told you before, they result from something that may have happened during the week or what have you. And so one of the things that happened during the past week was a return to the discussion of whether or not there's such a thing as different interpretations of Jeet Kune, right? And so I'm not 100% sure that is a real thing, that there really is, or that there can be so-called different interpretations of Jeet Kune. But from what I've seen, from what I've heard, from what I've experienced, there are definitely different approaches used in putting out the Jeet Kune knowledge, right? So, for example, there are some whose their approach is 100% empty hands Jeet Kune with like zero weapons, right? Then there are those whose weapons approach is what we would call Filipino Kali. Then there are those for whom their weapons approach is a little bit more contemporarily oriented, so they include firearms, right? If we go back to empty hands, there are some whose focus on empty hands does not include trapping or grappling, right? Then there are some who might include the trapping, but not the grappling, or at best rudimentary, let's call it, right? Grappling. And then when it comes to the grappling, there are those whose focus is more on, let's call it classical or traditional, like Japanese jiu-jitsu, let's say, right? Or stand-in grappling. Then there are some who have gone deeply into Pencak Silat, for example, while some have gone deeply into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In fact, there are some people that you might actually have to refer to them as former Jeet Kune because of the extent, because of the degree to which they have gone into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so that it might appear as if they've given up all of their previous Jeet Kune training, right? So we have all those approaches, right? So then, of course, the question comes up, which approach is best, right? And I've talked about this before. What the heck is best, right? For me, there's no answer to that question about best or what have you. From the perspective of a student, somebody who is looking for instruction in Jeet Kune, right? And then again, from the perspective of an instructor, somebody who provides the teaching in Jeet Kune, it still comes down to personal preference, right? So different people are going to use different approaches, and everybody's going to have a valid rationale for why they do what they do and the manner in which they do it, right? So you know, in the JKD world, you have some who are guided by you'll hear the expression, well, this is what I got from Bruce, right? So some take what they got from Bruce and that's it. That's all they do. That's all they teach, right? That's what they're dedicated to. Then there's some who take what they got from Bruce and they use that as a springboard and they go beyond what they got from Bruce, right? But then I think that there's a not so vocal and maybe therefore not so well-known group that takes what they got from the people who got it from Bruce, and then they apply the approach of analysis and research and development, right, into what it is that they put out as instructors, right? So since they didn't get it directly from Bruce, and instead they got it from one of his originals, let's call it, right? Then they make use of the original Bruce Lee material that's out there. So the Tao of Jeet Kune, anything in the John Little library, you know, the stuff that I refer to. I'm not gonna have any source material for today, so I'm probably not gonna flash a book or something at you guys. Oh, in terms of flashing, I should flash the today's t-shirt. Okay, cool. Right? So they didn't get it directly from Bruce Lee. So you take the materials that are available for everybody out there, and then you blend the ideas and the principles and the concepts and the teachings from the different sources, and that's how you as an instructor can come up, because it's difficult for a student to do that, right? That's why it's important for us instructors, all the instructors who listen to the broadcast, and then those who, you know, and to me it's important that we continue to put the knowledge of the different Jeet Kune Do instructors out there. So that's why I have the other Facebook show, which is the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. And so I've been promising Ron Kosakowski for a while, and I think we're finally going to be able to get it together. His son Jesse's been dealing with an injury and what have you. So I think tomorrow, maybe around this same time, 3 p.m., you guys can come back to Facebook and I'll do a dialogue with Ron and Jesse James Kosakowski, right? So let's get back to what we're talking about. So you train with a Bruce Lee original, and then you take all of the original Bruce Lee material that's available and you blend that with what you get from the original. So now you are essentially also getting it from Bruce, so to speak, even if not directly, right? So if I train with somebody whose JKD approach is kicking and punching only, right? So there's no trapping, there's no grappling, and they tell me that the reason, their rationale for that is that the time that they spent with Bruce Lee, Bruce was moving away from the trapping and grappling, right? Then I'm gonna accept that. But if, as a student maybe, but even as an instructor, if the research or the result of my research into my own experience has shown that trapping is valid for me, then I'm still going to work on my trapping, right? Now, just because the trapping, let's say it comes primarily from the Wing Chun, I'm not necessarily going to go train in Wing Chun up to the level of black sash or something in order to extract the essence of what Wing Chun has to offer, right? Because it's important to me that what I maintain is Jeet Kune Do as a priority and not something else, right? I mean, that's kind of a touchy subject, but I think you understand what I mean. So I might use a more streamlined approach to my Wing Chun, but I want to spend time with somebody who has dedicated themselves to Wing Chun. So, for example, I want to spend time with somebody maybe like Francis Fong or what's the guy, Simon Lau, right? Or gosh, I'm trying to remember the other guy, Samuel Kwok, right? I might want to spend time with somebody who has devoted themselves to Wing Chun so that I can understand their rationale behind that, and then that makes it easier for me to extract the essence behind what it is that they're teaching, right? Same thing with grappling. I might not find it necessary to join a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program and stay in it and train in it all the way up to black belt, to get my own black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in order to extract its essence. Instead, I might want to discover what Wing Chun and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Pencak Silat, or what have you, what they possess as high points, right? I want to understand why they've devoted themselves to this particular. So somebody like Jean-Jacques Machado, I would want to spend time with him, learning from him, because he's dedicated and devoted himself to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I want to understand why. What I think Eric Paulson might call the high percentage technique, right? What that's about. So then this high percentage technique, what I'm looking for is its use as an attack and its use as a counterattack, because essentially that's all there is, right? It's you using something as an attack or you using something as a counter when somebody attacks you. That's the essence of self-defense. So I train with them in order to absorb what is useful, right? And then same thing with Muay Thai, right? You spend time with somebody like Ajahn Chai, who has devoted himself to the art of Thai boxing, because you want to jump into it, you want to deep dive into it, and then bring yourself out, right? So if I discover, for example, that Pencak Silat or a particular Pencak Silat method puts a priority on off-balancing the opponent, then I might see how, when I'm in the clinch in Muay Thai, how off-balancing the opponent plays a role. So then I'm extracting essence, and I'm seeing how, if there's an application of a Pencak Silat principle when I'm in the plum in the Muay Thai, right? And to me, that's the Jeet Kune approach, because I'm not trying to be a Pencak Silat guy necessarily. I'm not trying to be a Muay Thai guy necessarily. What I'm trying to see is how these things lend themselves to the improvement of my expertise in that particular range of fighting, or that particular fighting skill, right? So that way, see, so this is just going to be another short broadcast for you guys. But that way, right, you can be a little bit esoteric, and when people ask you about, well, what's your style, right, you can go, well, it's no style. And then when they go, well, how can it be no style? And that's when you tell them, well, it can be all styles. And then they go, well, how can it be all styles? And you go, well, that's because it can be no style, right? And then they tell you that you're being a pain in the butt, right? And that's when you tell them, no, what I'm actually being is the center of an undifferentiated circle with no circumference, right? And then that really pisses them off, and they stop talking to you, right? And you make no friends. Okay. So I just wanted to spend, Independence Day was on Wednesday, so we took some time off and what have you. But I just wanted to spend a couple of 10, 15 minutes with you guys and talk about this, because it's something that's going to come up all the time, whether or not there are different interpretations of Jeet Kune. I don't think it's interpretations as such. I think it's more personal choice, personal preference, and the way that people go about things. So if your goal is to be well-rounded, you have the guideline for what well-roundedness is. You know that there are only two types of martial arts. There are martial arts that deal with empty hands, and there are martial arts that deal with weaponry. If you're going to be well-rounded, you got to deal in both. When you take a look at empty-handed martial art, right? Well, then what can you do in empty-handed martial art? You can kick, you can punch, you can trap, and you can grapple. You see? So you start with, like, let's call it the big picture, and then you whittle down, and you keep whittling down, right? And you have the category and the subcategory, or whatever it is that you want to call it. And then you have even the subcategories in there. It's kind of like the IRS code, right? But your intent is to investigate everything, to work everything down so that you're applying the hacking away at the unessentials. That was something that that I discussed at length this past week with a colleague who was in from Ireland, and we sat down and we spoke for a couple of hours. So I think in the next couple of weeks for the broadcast, I think what we'll do is to take a look at that, right? Start with the big picture of what martial art training is, and then use the Jeet Kune matrix or the Jeet Kune template or whatever, and go from the big picture to like the first element of the big picture, and then start taking that first element and carving it up into its component parts, analyzing the heck out of all of those, and then the next week moving on to another aspect of that, right? Okay, so that's it for today. Thanks to everybody who tuned in and spent a few minutes with me, right? Tomorrow, maybe 3 p.m. I don't have the time confirmed yet, but I should be talking with Ron and Jesse James Kosakowski on the Jeet Kune dialogues. Be sure to check out ilovejeetkundo.com, where you can find the I Love Jeet Kune Quick Skills series, Volume 1. And that's about it. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Signing off. Take care.